Well, hello. Welcome to Module 1. I'm excited. I'm not sure about you, but every module you'll figure out here very shortly. I'm going to give a bit of an overview. Now, we have a bit of a document that will outline, okay, here are the readings, here's what's expected of you. Have a bit kind of a visual organizer, so to speak. And then, of course, I want to give you a bit of an auditory visual organizer here. Now, this isn't getting into the specific assignments or anything like that, but it's just to kind of give you a taste of where we hope to go in this first module. Now, this first module, to me, is really about thinking about the learners that we serve, thinking about individuals with disabilities. Of course, that's what this course is going to be about. Thinking about the individuals we serve in terms of who they are, thinking about why we serve them in the manner we do, thinking about some of the legal ramifications, getting a little bit better historical context, because context, I think, is very important here. And context often begins with the law. Now, I was just out at a school district not too long ago, actually just this past week, where there was a lot of interpretation of the law. Everything from the IEP process to what we need to do for evaluations to what we need to do for technology, particularly assistive technology. And I have to say there was some misinterpretation or misapplication of the law. And the law, though, is critical. The law is the reinforcement, the law is the foundation. We are not lawyers, we're not expected to be attorneys, but we will have guidance in our district. But the law, more importantly to me, sets up the framework of how we're supposed to look at free, appropriate public education. The least restrictive environment, one of the reasons that we are really thinking of an inclusionary environment or movement to supporting that child in the general education classroom towards the general education standards. Now, with that, of course, the IEP is central and the individual education program. And so all those elements we're going to try to reinforce, not only in this module, but modules to come. But that's a very, very strong focus of this first module is to get an introduction to the law. And by the way, to me, the law is ongoing. The law is living, it's breathing. And one of the things we'll start to look at is a timeline. And we'll look at a timeline not just from the legal aspect, although you'll see two pictures there of President Johnson when he was passing the Elementary Secondary Education Act. And below that, actually, that may have been the Civil Rights Act, my apologies. And then President Obama, when I believe he is signing the Elementary Secondary Education Act with every student succeeds at ESSA. But we'll get into that in greater detail. But it's not just the law, it's also the history aspect of how we think of disabilities. How we've thought about disabilities not only in education, how we've thought about them in our community and society, how we thought them about as individuals, and of course, how we've thought about them in respect to the education they serve. And so we'll be looking at that in this module as well. So if we don't understand where we've come from and the evolution of that and the organic nature of that, I don't think we understand where we're at and where we will continue to go. And the law continues to change. There's been critical Supreme Court cases in the last few years. IDA, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, will probably be reauthorized again in the next 3 to 4 years after this current administration either is reelected or leaves. Is a conversation going on right now. So anyways, the law is living. It's always being interpreted. It's always being applied. And then finally, we'll get started with thinking about these individuals we serve. I think it's critical if we're going to serve the individuals, if we're going to understand the practices that are necessary, if we're going to understand why and how we need to evaluate them, if we're going to understand why we need to intervene with the practices, we need to understand who they are. And we need to understand who they are in terms of their specific disabilities. Now, we may say, well, wait, a disability is a disability, and actually it's not. A child with an intellectual disability will have some reading challenges, will have significant reading challenges. Well, individual learning disability, most likely they will have reading challenges, but are they the same? And that's an element that we'll be reinforcing as we go along here, the differences and the alignment, but also differences in terms of who the individuals are and how they serve. I mean, the autism spectrum is a perfect example of that. Someone who's considered high-functioning autism is going to be look very differently from an individual who has autism but is significantly challenged. For example, an individual who's high-functioning autism is probably going to be very verbal. It's probably going to have a rich vocabulary. An individual who is significantly in terms of the autism spectrum, they'll be non-communicative. They won't have a vocabulary at all that they're speaking out loud. Instead, it will have to be through sign or some other device or the PEC system or something like that, which we'll learn about. Okay, enough of that. That's just to kind of give you a taste of where we're going. Again, there is a cheat sheet to walk you through specifically what is needed. There's also, of course, in the modules, you'll see the dates in terms of the assignments from an overview. You can select directly on that. And then, of course, there's an overview of when things are generally due from the syllabus. And then, of course, finally, there's directions to the readings that are embedded within the pages of the module, but also at the beginning to understand what readings are assigned. If you have questions throughout any of this process, this first week or subsequent weeks, I always want to reinforce you can email me, text, or call me. That information's in the syllabus, and I'll be putting that out in our welcome message that you may have already seen or that you may have not realized it's there, so go and find it. That will come out the first day of class, Monday, the 26th of August, for this first module. Hope this information helps, and again, if you have any questions, call, contact me, text me, email me, and the like. Great. Have a good rest of the week. Have a good day, and have a good module.